The transmission crackled through the vast emptiness of space, a digital harbinger of humanity's final ultimatum. Admiral Marcus Reyes sat motionless, his calloused hands gripping the holographic console that projected the message to the Galactic Council's representatives. 20 years of war had etched lines of determination and sorrow across his face, each wrinkle a testament to humanity's desperate struggle for survival. Around him, the bridge of the UES Defiance hummed with a tension that could shatter glass. Veteran crew members exchanged glances that spoke volumes, silent conversations of soldiers who had seen too much, lost too much. The ship itself was a patchwork of repairs, scars from countless battles against the Vornax Collective, an alien civilization that had systematically dismantled human colonies across 3 star systems. "Transmitting now," whispered Commander Kai Rodriguez, his fingers hovering over the quantum communication array. The message was simple, brutally direct, a final warning that would echo through the galaxy's consciousness. Humanity had discovered something in the depths of the solar system's outer reaches. A technology? A weapon? A revelation that would change everything? The details were classified, known only to a handful of Earth's most senior military and scientific leadership. What was clear was the absolute finality of their message. Any further aggression would be met with consequences that would reshape the very fabric of galactic existence. Marcus remembered the day the first Vornax ships appeared, razor-sharp vessels that moved like liquid shadows, descending upon human colonies with surgical precision. They didn't want territory. They didn't want resources. They wanted something else, something that humanity had unknowingly possessed, something that threatened the very core of the Vornax's millennia-old civilization. The initial attacks were devastating. Entire colonies vanished overnight. Billions died in the first week. Earth's unified government, once fractured by internal conflicts, was forged in the crucible of this existential threat. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now stood shoulder to shoulder, their previous disputes rendered meaningless in the face of potential extinction. "Message sent," Kai confirmed, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus closed his eyes. The next few moments would determine the fate of not just humanity, but potentially every sentient civilization in the known galaxy. Whatever they had discovered in the outer solar system, a discovery that had cost the lives of his daughter, his entire research team, and millions of human lives, was now their ultimate bargaining chip. The holographic display flickered, showing the representatives of the Galactic Council. Dozens of species, some humanoid, some so alien they defied human comprehension, watched with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and barely contained hostility. "We are waiting, humans," came the translated voice of the Vornax Prime Coordinator, a being of pure energy and complex mathematical algorithms. "Your message suggests consequences beyond our current understanding." Marcus opened his eyes. His response would be humanity's final statement, a warning that would echo through the cosmos, a testament to a species pushed to the absolute brink of existence. "The next move," he said slowly, each word measured and heavy with implication, "ends everything." The silence that followed was more deafening than any weapon humanity had ever created. The memory surfaced like a ghost emerging from the depths of Marcus's consciousness. 3 months earlier, deep within the research outpost on Titan's frozen surface, everything had changed. The discovery had been accidental, the kind of breakthrough that happens when desperation meets impossible odds. Dr. Elena Kaminsky, the lead quantum physicist on his research team, had been working on something entirely different. They were trying to develop a new type of quantum shielding, a last-ditch effort to protect what remained of human colonies from the Vornax's devastating energy weapons. Nobody expected what they found. The laboratory was a marvel of human engineering, carved into the thick ice of Titan, protected by layers of quantum-dampening fields and radiation shields. Marcus remembered walking in that day, his daughter Aria trailing behind him. She was brilliant, a young quantum engineer who had inherited her mother's intellect and her father's stubborn determination. "Dad, look at this," Aria had said, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that seemed to bend reality itself. The data stream was unlike anything they had ever seen. Patterns that shouldn't exist, mathematical sequences that defied known physical laws. What they discovered was more than a weapon. It was a fundamental rewriting of how energy, matter, and consciousness could interact. The Vornax had been hunting humanity not for territory, not for resources, but for this, a key to something far more profound than mere galactic dominance. The quantum resonance they had uncovered could theoretically collapse entire dimensional structures. It wasn't just a threat to the Vornax. It was a threat to the very fabric of reality. Aria's hands had been trembling as she ran the final calculations. "It's a kill switch," she whispered, "not just for a civilization, for a universe." Marcus's mind snapped back to the present, the bridge of the UES Defiance feeling suddenly claustrophobic. Kai Rodriguez approached, his face a mask of controlled tension. "Admiral, we're receiving initial responses from the Galactic Council." The holographic displays erupted with translations, some filled with rage, others with terror, a few with a cold, calculating silence that spoke volumes. The Vornax Prime Coordinator's response was particularly chilling. "Humans," the algorithmic voice translated, "you do not understand the magnitude of what you threaten. Some secrets are meant to remain hidden." But Marcus knew they understood perfectly. Humanity had been pushed to the absolute edge of extinction. They had discovered a truth so fundamental, so terrifying, that it could reset the entire cosmic equation. The weapon, if it could even be called that, was both their ultimate defense and their ultimate threat. Aria was gone now. She had been the first to understand the full implications of their discovery, and the Vornax had made sure she would never share that knowledge. They had attacked the Titan research base with a precision that suggested they knew exactly what humanity was developing. But they didn't know everything. Marcus's hand unconsciously touched a small quantum drive hanging from a chain around his neck, the last physical remnant of their research, a device that contained calculations that could unravel reality itself. "Prepare secondary transmission protocols," he ordered Kai. "If they think our first message was a warning, they haven't seen anything yet." The Defiance hummed with potential energy, a sleeping giant waiting to be unleashed. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the Vornax were calculating their next move. But humanity had already decided. There would be no more running, no more hiding. The next move would indeed end everything. The quantum drive pulsed against Marcus's chest, a silent reminder of humanity's last hope. In the depths of the Defiance's war room, holographic projections flickered with the remnants of fallen colonies, each point of light a memorial to billions lost. Dr. Elena Kaminsky stood beside him, her fingers tracing the intricate quantum equations that had become their weapon and their curse. "The Vornax won't understand," she muttered, "not until it's too late." Their plan was audacious, borderline insane. The quantum resonance they'd discovered wasn't just a weapon, it was a cosmic reset button, a mathematical key that could unravel the fundamental structures binding reality together. The Vornax had been hunting humanity for centuries, believing they were pursuing some strategic advantage. They had no idea they were actually chasing the potential to unmake existence itself. Kai Rodriguez interrupted the tense silence. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple Vornax battle groups converging on our position. They're not trying to communicate anymore. They're coming to destroy us." Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. Let them come. The attack on the Titan research base had been a miscalculation on the Vornax's part. They thought they could eliminate the threat by killing Arya and her team. Instead, they had scattered the knowledge, encrypted fragments hidden across human resistance networks, duplicated and distributed like a viral mathematical genome. Quantum entanglement protocol is ready, Elena reported, her voice steady despite the approaching storm. We can trigger the dimensional cascade from multiple points if necessary. Marcus remembered the moment everything changed. It wasn't in some grand laboratory or during a breakthrough moment. It had been a quiet afternoon when Arya was working through her calculations, a half-empty coffee mug beside her, sunlight streaming through the reinforced windows of the Titan research station. Dad, she had said, her voice trembling with a mix of terror and excitement. I think I've found something impossible. The mathematical sequence she'd discovered wasn't just a weapon. It was a fundamental restructuring of how dimensional boundaries could be manipulated. In the wrong hands, it could collapse entire universes. In the right hands, humanity's hands, it was their ultimate defense. The Vornax had never understood humanity's greatest strength. It wasn't their technology. It wasn't their adaptability. It was their capacity to transform absolute desperation into something miraculous. Alarms blared across the Defiance's bridge. The first wave of Vornax ships was approaching, sleek obsidian vessels that moved like liquid shadows between the stars. Incoming transmission, Kai announced, his voice tight. The holographic display erupted with the Vornax Prime Coordinator's fractal form. Surrender the quantum data, the entity demanded. Your extinction is inevitable. Marcus stepped forward, the quantum drive beating like a second heart against his chest. No, he responded. Your extinction is what's inevitable. The first energy weapons began to impact the Defiance's shields. But Marcus knew something the Vornax didn't. Every attack, every moment of conflict, was bringing them closer to the trigger point. The quantum drive pulsed. The mathematical sequence was ready. Humanity's final warning wasn't just a message. It was a promise. The next move would end everything. The battle erupted with a violence that defied conventional warfare. Vornax ships moved like liquid darkness, their energy weapons cutting through space with surgical precision. The UES Defiance shuddered under the assault, quantum shields flickering like a dying heartbeat. Marcus watched the tactical displays, each explosion a constellation of potential extinction. They weren't just fighting a battle. They were executing a plan decades in the making. Every moment of conflict, every calculated strike, was bringing them closer to the quantum threshold. Dr. Elena Kaminsky worked furiously at the secondary console, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with mathematical life. Quantum entanglement is reaching critical resonance, she reported, her voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. We're approaching the point of no return. Kai Rodriguez managed the ship's defensive systems, his movements a blur of precision and desperation. Shields at 42%, he called out. We can't sustain this much longer. But sustaining wasn't the point. Survival was never the objective. Marcus's mind drifted to the origins of this moment. The first Vornax attacks had come without warning, sweeping through human colonies like a computational plague. They were methodical, relentless, a civilization so advanced that human resistance seemed futile. Yet humanity had always been defined by its impossible victories. The quantum discovery on Titan had been more than a weapon. It was a mathematical key that could unravel the very fabric of dimensional existence. Arya had been the first to understand its true potential, a discovery that had cost her life, but not her legacy. Incoming massive energy surge, Kai shouted. The ship's warning systems screamed a crimson alert. A Vornax planet killer emerged from quantum space, a massive construct that looked more like a mathematical equation given physical form than a traditional spacecraft. Its surface was a living algorithm, constantly shifting, adapting, calculating millions of potential attack vectors simultaneously. The prime coordinator's fractalized communication cut through the ship's systems. "Humans," the entity proclaimed, its voice a mathematical precision that bordered on musical. "Your resistance is a statistical impossibility. Surrender is the only logical outcome." Marcus stepped forward, the quantum drive hanging from his neck, pulsing with an energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Logic," he responded, "has never been humanity's limitation." Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Quantum resonance is reaching critical point. We're moments away from triggering the dimensional cascade." The plan was audacious, beyond comprehension. The Vornax had been hunting humanity not for territory, not for resources, but for the quantum key that could potentially reset the entire cosmic structure. They had no idea that in their pursuit, they were walking directly into humanity's ultimate trap. Kai managed a grim laugh. "They still don't understand, do they?" "No," Marcus replied, "and that's exactly why we'll win." The Defiance had been more than a ship. It was a mobile quantum transmitter designed to distribute the mathematical sequence that could potentially unravel reality itself. Each moment of conflict, each attack, was charging the quantum drive, building the potential energy needed to trigger the ultimate defense. Vornax ships swarmed around them, thousands of vessels that moved like a living computational network. But they didn't realize that every attack, every energy weapon was actually feeding the very mechanism designed to destroy them. "Quantum threshold at 89%, Elena announced. Her voice was steady, clinical, the voice of a scientist who understood they were about to witness something beyond human comprehension. The planet killer moved closer. Its surface was a living mathematical equation, constantly recalculating, adapting. The Vornax believed in absolute predictability. They couldn't comprehend the chaos of human innovation. Marcus touched the quantum drive. Aria's final work. Humanity's final hope. "Prepare for quantum cascade," he ordered. The universe held its breath. The next move would end everything. The moment stretched between heartbeats, between breaths, between the fundamental laws of reality. Quantum cascade was more than a weapon. It was a reset button for existence itself. The Vornax planet killer began to splinter, not from external damage, but from within. Its mathematical structure started to unravel, each algorithmic thread pulling apart like delicate strands of probability. Marcus watched, transfixed, as the massive construct began to dissolve into pure potential. "Quantum resonance at critical point," Elena whispered, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and absolute terror. What humanity had discovered was beyond weapon, beyond technology. It was a fundamental key to manipulating the very fabric of dimensional existence. The Vornax had hunted them across star systems, believing they were pursuing some strategic advantage. They had no comprehension of the true nature of their pursuit. Kai Rodriguez managed the ship's systems with a surgeon's precision. "Multiple dimensional rifts forming," he reported. "Our quantum buffers are holding, but barely." The ship's interior began to shift. Holographic displays flickered between multiple potential realities, glimpses of battles not fought, colonies not destroyed, versions of humanity that had survived different paths. The quantum drive around Marcus's neck pulsed with an energy that seemed to breathe, to think, to exist beyond conventional understanding. "They don't understand," Marcus muttered, watching the Vornax vessels begin to fragment. They never understood. The attack on the Titan research base had been their fatal mistake. By attempting to eliminate the research team, They had inadvertently scattered the knowledge, encrypted fragments that had spread like a viral mathematical genome across human resistance networks. Arya's final work wasn't just a weapon, it was a blueprint for reality itself. The Vornax Prime Coordinator's fractalized communication became increasingly erratic. Mathematical patterns broke down, computational logic collapsing under the weight of something it couldn't comprehend. "Impossible," the entity repeated, its voice breaking into pure numerical chaos. "Statistically impossible." Elena's hands moved across the console, managing quantum buffers that were preventing their own reality from unraveling. "The cascade is self-regulating," she explained, more to herself than anyone else. "It's not destroying, it's restructuring." Memories began to bleed through the ship's quantum shields. Moments of potential, lives not lived, battles not fought, choices not made. Marcus saw glimpses of Arya working in the Titan laboratory, of human colonies that had survived, of entire civilizations that might have existed. The quantum weapon was more than destruction. It was possibility made manifest. "Dimensional stability at 72%, Kai reported. His voice sounded distant, as if speaking from multiple realities simultaneously. The Vornax fleet continued to fragment. But this wasn't destruction in any conventional sense. Their ships were becoming something else. Pure potential, mathematical probability made physical. Entire vessels dissolved into streams of quantum information, their computational structures unable to maintain cohesion. "They thought we were just another species to be conquered," Marcus said, watching the transformation. "They never understood what humanity truly was." Humanity had always been defined by its capacity to transform absolute desperation into something miraculous. The quantum discovery wasn't just a technological breakthrough, it was the ultimate expression of human potential, the ability to reshape reality itself when pushed to the absolute limit. Elena's voice cut through the quantum noise. "Cascade reaching final phase. Reality stabilization imminent." The ship itself seemed to breathe. Holographic displays showed multiple potential outcomes. A universe where the Vornax had won, a universe where humanity had been destroyed, a universe where something entirely new emerged. "Quantum threshold," Marcus whispered, "is just another word for possibility." The Vornax planet killer continued to dissolve, its massive structure breaking down into pure mathematical potential. Entire star systems seemed to pause, as if holding their collective breath. The next move was about to end everything, and begin something entirely new. Silence descended. A silence that was more than the absence of sound. It was the absence of everything. The UES Defiance hung suspended in a space that was neither real nor unreal. Marcus felt the quantum drive against his chest, now pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the very heartbeat of existence. "Dimensional stabilization complete," Elena announced, her voice a whisper that seemed to echo across multiple realities. The holographic displays flickered between states of being. Vornax vessels, once perfect mathematical constructs of computational precision, now existed as fragmented potentials. They were neither destroyed nor intact, existing in a state of pure quantum possibility. Kai Rodriguez ran diagnostic checks, his fingers moving across interfaces that seemed to breathe with mathematical life. "I'm reading something," he said, his voice uncertain. "But I can't define what." What they had done was beyond weapon, beyond warfare. It was a fundamental reconstruction of reality itself. Marcus remembered the moment of discovery on Titan. Arya standing before holographic displays, her hands trembling as she realized the true nature of their research. They hadn't just found a way to fight the Vornax. They had discovered a method to reset the fundamental parameters of existence. "The Galactic Council is attempting communication," Kai reported. but communication protocols are unstable. Holographic representations began to materialize, delegates from hundreds of civilizations, their forms shifting between potential states. Some appeared as they might have been, some as they could become. Some existed in multiple forms simultaneously. The Vornax Prime Coordinator's fractalized form appeared, but now it was different. No longer a perfect computational entity, but a being of pure potential. "What have you done?" the entity asked, its voice a mathematical symphony of confusion and wonder. "We've given the universe a choice," Marcus responded. Elena approached the main console, her calculations dancing across quantum interfaces. "The cascade wasn't destruction," she explained. "It was a reset, a moment of absolute potential." Entire star systems had transformed. Colonies that had been destroyed now existed in potential states. Battles that had been fought now hung in quantum suspension, every possible outcome existing simultaneously. The quantum weapon was a mathematical key that could rewrite the fundamental constants of existence. The Vornax had hunted humanity believing they were pursuing some strategic technological advantage. They had no comprehension of the true nature of their pursuit. "Quantum buffers maintaining stability," Kai reported, "but we're operating in uncharted territory." Marcus touched the quantum drive. Aria's final work. Humanity's ultimate expression of survival. They had been pushed to the absolute edge of extinction, and in response, they had discovered a way to rewrite the very rules of reality. Holographic displays showed multiple potential outcomes: universes where humanity had been destroyed, universes where the Vornax had won, universes where something entirely new emerged, all existing simultaneously, all held in delicate quantum balance. "We're receiving transmissions," Elena said, "but they're complicated." Delegates from across the galaxy appeared, some fully formed, some existing as pure mathematical potential. Their messages were fragments, possibilities, potential communications that existed in multiple states simultaneously. The Vornax civilization, once a perfect computational network, now existed as a series of potential states. They were neither conquered nor victorious. They simply were. "Humanity was never just another species to be conquered," Marcus said, watching the quantum displays. "We were possibility made manifest." The quantum drive continued to pulse. A reminder, a warning, a promise. Kai managed a laugh that was half terror, half wonder. "What do we do now?" Marcus looked at the displays, at the multiple potential realities, at the transformed galactic landscape, at the absolute potential of existence itself. "We wait," he said, "and we watch." The next move had ended everything, and begun something entirely new. 27 days passed, or perhaps 27 eternities. Time had become a relative concept aboard the UES Defiance, a ship that now existed simultaneously in multiple states of reality. Marcus stood at the primary observation deck, watching reality unfold, or perhaps reconstruct, before his eyes. The quantum drive continued to pulse against his chest, a constant reminder of the cosmic transformation they had initiated. "Quantum potential stabilization at 78.3%, Elena reported, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and existential wonder. "We're seeing unprecedented dimensional convergence. Entire star systems appeared and disappeared in the holographic displays. Civilizations emerged, existed, and dissolved in moments. The Galactic Council, once a rigid structure of diplomatic protocols, now existed as a fluid network of potential interactions. Kai Rodriguez managed the ship's increasingly complex systems. "We're receiving communication fragments," he said, "but they're not linear, not sequential, they're probabilistic. What humanity had done was beyond weapon, beyond warfare. It was a fundamental reconstruction of dimensional existence. Marcus remembered the final moments in the Titan research base. Arya standing before holographic displays, her hands trembling as she realized the true nature of their discovery. They hadn't just found a way to fight the Vornax. They had discovered a method to reset the fundamental parameters of reality itself. The Vornax civilization now existed as a series of potential states, computational networks that were simultaneously destroyed, victorious, transforming, and becoming something entirely new. Their perfect algorithmic structures had been shattered, replaced by pure quantum potential. "Incoming transmission," Kai announced, "or transmissions. It's difficult to differentiate." Holographic representations began to materialize, delegates from hundreds of civilizations. Some appeared as they might have been. Some as they could become. Some existed in multiple forms simultaneously, their very existence a quantum probability. The most striking transformation was the Galactic Council itself. What was once a rigid diplomatic structure had become a fluid network of potential interactions. Delegates appeared and disappeared, their forms shifting between multiple possible states of existence. "We're observing something unprecedented," Elena said, her calculations dancing across quantum interfaces. "The quantum cascade isn't just a reset, it's a recalibration of fundamental cosmic parameters." Marcus understood now what Arya had discovered. The weapon, if it could even be called that, was more than a method of destruction. It was a key to rewriting the fundamental constants of existence. The Vornax had hunted humanity, believing they were pursuing some strategic technological advantage. They had no comprehension of the true nature of their pursuit. "Dimensional buffers are holding," Kai reported, "but we're operating in completely uncharted territory." The ship's interior began to shift. Holographic displays flickered between multiple potential realities, glimpses of battles not fought, colonies not destroyed, versions of humanity that had survived different paths. The quantum drive around Marcus's neck continued to pulse, with an energy that seemed to breathe, to think, to exist beyond conventional understanding. Memories began to bleed through the quantum shields, moments of potential, lives not lived, battles not fought, choices not made. Marcus saw glimpses of Arya working in the Titan laboratory, of human colonies that had survived, of entire civilizations that might have existed. "We've given the universe a choice," Marcus muttered, watching the displays. The most remarkable aspect was the absolute potential. Every possible outcome now existed simultaneously. Universes where humanity had been destroyed. Universes where the Vornax had won. Universes where something entirely new emerged. All existing in delicate quantum balance. Elena approached the main console. "The cascade wasn't destruction," she explained to no one in particular. "It was possibility made manifest." Kai managed a laugh that was part wonder, part terror. "What happens now?" Marcus looked at the displays, at the multiple potential realities, at the transformed galactic landscape, at the absolute potential of existence itself. "We wait," he said. "And we watch." The quantum drive continued to pulse. A reminder, a warning, a promise. Humanity had been pushed to the absolute edge of extinction, and in response, they had discovered a way to rewrite the very rules of reality. The next move had ended everything, and begun something entirely new. Quantum time was a concept humanity had never truly understood until this moment. The UES Defiance existed in a state beyond observation, beyond comprehension. Marcus stood at the threshold of reality, the quantum drive now seeming to beat with a rhythm that transcended human understanding. "Final convergence sequence initiating," Elena announced, her voice a whisper that seemed to echo across multiple dimensions. What had begun as a desperate attempt to survive had transformed into something far beyond a mere weapon of war. The quantum cascade was a reset button for existence itself, a mathematical key that could rewrite the fundamental parameters of universal reality. Kai Rodriguez managed systems that no longer followed any conventional logic. Dimensional interfaces are becoming unstable, he reported, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and absolute terror. The Galactic Council, if it could still be called that, had become a fluid network of potential interactions. Delegates from hundreds of civilizations appeared and disappeared, their forms shifting between multiple states of existence. Some were recognizable. Some were so alien they defied human comprehension. The Vornax civilization no longer existed as a singular entity. They were a cascade of potential states, simultaneously destroyed, victorious, transforming, and becoming something entirely unprecedented. Marcus remembered the moment of discovery. Arya standing in the Titan research base, her hands trembling as she realized the true nature of their work. They hadn't just found a way to fight. They had discovered a method to reset the fundamental constants of existence. Quantum potential reaching critical point, Elena reported, her calculations dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe with mathematical life. The ship's interior continued to shift. Holographic displays flickered between realities, glimpses of battles not fought, colonies not destroyed, versions of humanity that had survived different paths. The quantum drive pulsed with an energy that seemed sentient, that seemed to think, to understand. "We're receiving transmissions," Kai said, "but they're no longer communication. They're pure potential. Memories bled through quantum shields, moments of absolute possibility, lives not lived, choices not made, universes that existed only in mathematical potential." Marcus saw glimpses of Arya's final moments, of human colonies that might have survived, of civilizations that could have emerged. The most remarkable transformation was cosmic itself. Every possible outcome now existed simultaneously. Universes where humanity had been destroyed. Universes where the Vornax had won. Universes where something entirely new emerged, all existing in a delicate quantum balance. The cascade was never about destruction, Elena explained, more to herself than to anyone else. It was about potential, about choice. Marcus understood now the true nature of their discovery. The weapon was a key, a method to rewrite the fundamental mathematical structure of reality. The Vornax had hunted humanity, believing they were pursuing some strategic advantage. They had no comprehension of the true nature of their pursuit. "Dimensional buffers are breaking down," Kai reported. "We're approaching a point of absolute transformation." The quantum drive continued to pulse, a reminder, a warning, a promise. Holographic displays showed the ultimate potential of existence. Entire civilizations existed in states of absolute possibility. The Galactic Council had become a network of potential interactions, delegates appearing and disappearing, their forms shifting between multiple possible states of existence. "We've given the universe a choice," Marcus whispered, watching the displays. Elena approached the main console, her final calculations revealing something beyond human comprehension. "The cascade isn't an end," she said. "It's a beginning." Kai managed a laugh that was part wonder, part terror. "What happens now?" Marcus looked at the displays, at the multiple potential realities, at the transformed cosmic landscape, at the absolute potential of existence itself. The quantum drive pulsed one final time. A moment of absolute potential. A choice. The next move had ended everything, and begun something entirely new. Humanity's final warning to the galaxy was simple.